I'm Alice Wallstrom Carlson. My birthday's December 21st, 1927.
Tell me about your mom and dad.
Oh, they were hard-working people, very hard. They both came from Sweden when they were 18 years of age. My dad was sponsored by his aunt and uncle. They lived on Fairfield Avenue, Axel and Olga Vilander. And my mother came to Mount Jewett, Pennsylvania when she was 18 to live with her mother, who had left her in Sweden when she was just a baby. So they had come back for her. So I don't know how happy she was at first, but she adjusted, I think, very well. She worked for a Jewish family in Mount Jewett, Pennsylvania, and I think the children taught her English. She spoke very well. She was a lovely lady.
Was it uncommon where folks immigrated from Sweden and became really domestics?
Yes, especially women.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know Mount Jewett has a Scandinavian festival.
Yes.
It's a draw.
Actually, that Scandinavian festival was started by, I believe, years ago. There was a Kahn family that had the hardware store, and my mother's cousin married one of Jean Kahn, and they were killed very tragically together in an automobile accident, Mom and Dad, and Jean took over their hardware store. Now this is how I understand it. And through the years, Ellen started the Swedish shop in the hardware store. So she was a wonderful lady. And also her mother was a very good friend of Sandy Kinberg's mother. So there's connections wherever you go.
Small world.
Yep.
Now, why was Mount Jewett, of all places, sort of a Swedish enclave?
That I can't say.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was oil. My grandpa's well, actually it was her stepfather. He worked in the oil field. There was a great big oil derrick in the backyard of their home. I remember that. And then he worked what they call the lines. There was a house that controlled all the pumps. So he had to check to make sure everything was okay. And we'd go visit. When we visited, we would go with him. And of course, he was a very nature-loving man. He'd have the deer come right up to him, and yeah, it was interesting. And he had a beautiful old Ford. It was immaculate. And we were allowed to go with him to get ice cream. We had an ice cream cone. We were just kids, Greg, but what a treat.
Yeah, my golly.
Well, Mount Jewett had a glass factory, I remember. I maybe had a tannery too. You know, I wasn't very old, and my memory's not very good.
So, how did your parents find their way to this? Did they come to the Jamestown area?
Oh, this is kind of. They had Swedish dances in, well, I suppose in a lot of the cities where the Swedish people settled, and my mother's cousin lived in Jamestown, Esther Ekman. And she would come to visit her on her days off. There must have been some kind of a train or something that came into Jamestown. And that's where they met, at a Swedish dance.
I'll be darned.
Questions.
So they find their way from Mount Jewett to Jamestown. And what did your dad do?
My dad worked at Art Metal for many, many years. He always worked at Art Metal. Worked himself up. So.
Was Art Metal at the time on Jones and Gifford Avenue?
Yes. And then of course they built a new factory way out on Baker Street,
which is now Cummins.
Yes.
So your dad was there for many, many years. Did he have other jobs, or was that really?
No, well, he was we moved out in the country on Camp Street Extension, and he was kind of a. I guess a part-time farmer too, but my mother had to take care of the animals. No, he tried everything. He was a very talented man. And he built a tractor out of a old car body and put cleats on the wheels, and yeah, he could do anything.
And your mom was, she stayed at home?
Yep, she was at home.
Tended, when you talk about having a small farm, what animals did you have?
At first, I don't think we had too many. I remember when we got the dog. my dad, the first the first time he had to butcher a chicken, he had to have his aunt come up and help him, tell him what to do. But he learned, and we had chickens. We did have chickens. And then he brought home some billy goat. Oh, that was something when he did that.
Yep.
And then he had 2 little goats that passed away that I remember. Oh, we had pigs. We had pigs. Every year they would butcher, and of course they didn't waste anything. Everything was saved, even the blood. I don't know if you remember hearing about the Swedish people making blood pudding.
I've heard that. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, it sounds awful.
Yeah.
Well, we never had that.
Okay.
That was one thing we didn't do. My mother used to take the head and make silta, carve. That was called head silta, I think. And then there was another one where she ground up the meat, and it was a kind of a jelly type silta. They still make that today and sell it in some of the stores.
I've had that. I like sill better.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, I like sill too.
Yeah.
And my mother's was the best. My mother-in-law used to make sill too, but my mom she did. I don't know if the secret was she always used the white sugar, and but anyway, white vinegar. It was good.
So you grew up in Jamestown principally.
Yes,
on Camp Street Extension.
Yes.
And at the time where I can't think of, there wasn't many houses out there in Camp Street.
No, and it was with we built our house. My dad started. We lived on Crown Street in an apartment, I remember. And then I think Charles too, I heard that name. And I think I've driven by the house. I think I still recognize the house where we lived. I wasn't very old. I was allowed to sit on the curb,
Yeah.
because there were very few cars. And we used to play in the neighbor's stone driveway. He didn't like that. I had a little boyfriend, I guess. I don't remember what his name was. And then we moved out on Camp Street. My dad had a house built out there, but Depression started. And we had nothing in that house. We had the bathroom, the room, but no facility. No water in the house, no sink, absolutely nothing. My poor mother was used to a few of those luxuries in the city, but she moved out there and there was nothing. I don't remember. All I can remember is when she went home to the hospital to have Art, my youngest brother. It was February, and she had to go outside and pump water, carry it in, heat it on an oil or a kerosene stove, and a double boiler. You remember those double boilers that everyone wanted they were antiques in the future, and carry that downstairs. She did have a black stone washer, a wringer washer. That's one thing she did have. And I don't know how she did it. She had to hang all the flannel diapers in the attic, and they were stiff as a board. They finally got dry. Yeah. We were just kids. I was only 5 years old, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go out and help Mom. I'll pump. I remember that, walking outside in the winter, but I didn't use that pump very often. That was hard work.
So you had the siblings, of course.
Oh, yes.
Who were they?
Helen was my sister. She was next, and Helen, she married Bud Weaver. That his dad had the cake shop, and Bud took over. And then I had the brother Paul, you know Paul, and then Art.
Art worked at Alstrom Schaefer, didn't he?
Pardon?
Did Art work at Alstrom Schaefer's?
No, he did not. He worked for Sandberg Sprinkler.
Okay, that's right.
He was a sprinkler fitter. And they both, Paul and Art, built homes out on Camp Street Extension. Very nice homes.
Right.
And Marshall and I, of course, built on the Swanson Road. We built a house.
Yep.
So we all lived in that area. And all of us kids went to C.E. Smith School, which was number 10. It was divided into districts, I guess. And C.E. Smith was the superintendent. Had a picture of him on the wall.
Really?
Oh, yes. In the school, we had a picture of C.E. Smith.
Where was the school located?
Willard Street Extension.
Is the building, I think, is still there?
Yeah, the brick building is still there.
Oh, my gosh, I never knew a name on that.
Yep. There was an old school that they tore down and built that. So when I went there, it was fairly new. And I've always wanted to see a picture of the old school, but I never did. Because the neighbor girls went to that school out on Camp Street.
Now, C.E. Smith School, was that an elementary school?
It was 1 through 8th grade.
Okay.
And from there, you had the choice to either go to Faulkner or to Jefferson. And of course, I chose Jefferson. We all did. We all went to Jefferson.
How did you get there? Was it busing?
No, we walked.
You're kidding.
It wasn't far from Camp Street
Well,
to Jefferson.
now that I mentioned you got camp straight down the hill, it's all downhill to get to Jefferson going there.
No, it was kind of flat, Greg, going out Camp Extension. The hill was right just beyond the school going down Camp Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the walk wasn't bad. Oh, and we went ice skating. We wouldn't miss a night of ice skating at Allen Park.
This would have been on where the tennis courts were.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm.
We did the same, right?
Yeah.
Golly.
Oh, I'm sure you did, because you lived up there.
Yeah, I lived in Allendale.
Mm-hmm.
So you lived there and you went to C.E. Smith, K through 8, and then Jamestown High School. And what years did you graduate from Jamestown High School?
1946.
1946. Okay.
During the war.
Yeah. Well, let's ask that question. Do you remember December 7th, 1941?
I sure do.
What do you remember about it?
Well, hearing President Roosevelt say, a day of infamy, or however you pronounce it. Yeah, and then rationing. We didn't suffer though. We had things, we grew our own vegetables. My dad had 2 huge vegetable gardens. We had potatoes, we had carrots, we had all apples, everything that we needed. So we did quite well. And of course my dad got extra gas because he had the tractor. And yeah, we had margarine. We didn't like it, but my mom, with the animals, Mom churned too, so we had butter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't, as far as my memory goes, we were not really without anything. But I know it wasn't easy for some people. Art Metal was on strike when we first moved out there for 6 months. And I don't know, our mortgage was held by an older couple. Well, they probably weren't old at that time, but I remember them as being older. And they felt sorry for us, I guess, my dad with 4 little kids. So they never foreclosed on us. I'm sure he missed payments, and many times he saved enough to pay the interest. And I do remember the day that he made the final payment. And I think the woman, it was the son that was collecting the money at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, Greg, but the kids, we were fine. So, but it wasn't easy for my dad, I know. And when we moved out, that lot that we lived on, it was right in the corner that you turn down and go down to the end of the camp. Nothing but stumps. And my dad, he was a dynamite expert. He got a permit, and they used to dynamite, put a big door in front of one of the windows so the stuff wouldn't fly and break the glass. And the men would come up, they built a tripod, and they had a pulley where they, would pull. So they pulled up the stumps, and yeah, men worked hard in those days.
Oh,
Women did too.
They sure did. Now, during the wartime period, rationing, did you go out and collect cans? Did you go out and do anything for the war effort as kids? Sometimes they did that.
We tried to save cans, I know. I don't think I remember collecting cans myself. Maybe the boys did. I don't remember that. I know Art was always, even to the day that, he grew to be older and had lived in the house, he was always walking and picking up trash along the highway, or the street, road, I guess, road. Yeah, he it was just, and C.E. Smith School was like one big family. I have such good memories about that. It was fun. I liked school. I cried if I couldn't go.
Well, where the school was it wasn't a large school.
No, it was.
How many students did you have?
We had, now I'm just guessing, around 60 some most of the time. We had 4 grades, 1 through 4 in one room, and the upper grades 5 through 8 in the other room. Nice auditorium, nice little kitchen, and 2 nice. It was a nice building, really a nice building. And we would ride in the morning when the weather was bad. We'd ride in. No, that's when we went to high school. We walked. I don't know, the Johnson family lived next door to us, and my mother would let me go during the winter, if it was really bad, if Norman was going. I cried if I couldn't go to school. I loved it, Greg. I did. I love school.
Now, nearby was the Willard Street baseball field. They had a Little League field there on Willard
yeah,
Street.
that was at the Willard Chapel.
Willard Chapel, yeah.
That was just inside the city.
Just the
Yeah.
That's where we played our Little League way back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Wow. So out on Willard Street, and you chose to go to Jefferson rather than go to Faulkner. Was there a reason for that?
No, I don't know. I always thought it was so far to walk to Faulkner, but it really wasn't. You could go down Dow Street and you were almost there. That was just a choice we made, because we didn't. Eventually, when the boys they centralized the school. My dad paid tuition for Paul and Art for a few years,
Okay.
but we didn't. And I did very well at Jefferson too. I fit right in, but I was scared. My cousin and I, we were just like, we worried about that move.
Who was your cousin?
Annaline Forsliff.
Okay.
That family lived on the end, right at the end of Camp Street.
Okay. Then you go to the high school, and now you go to the big school where everybody comes together.
That was scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I graduated. I was vice president of my class.
Perfect.
And I was tapped for Honor Society in my junior year. And what a thrill, Greg. Wow. At that time I still have the little yellow blue ribbon. And it was, someone would come in the room from the Honor Society and pin that little ribbon on you.
Oh my gosh.
And of course you had no idea you were going to get the pin or the ribbon. It was exciting.
So you graduate in 1946. Then what do you do? What's next?
Well, I knew I couldn't go to college, so I majored in a business course. And I have to tell you, I did get 100 in my Regents for typing, transcription, and dictation, typing, and I did very well. But I never used it. I started working for a dentist, Dr. Bradley. I worked for him for 4 years. Of course, then I met Marsh, roller skating at Midway.
Was it love at first sight?
No, no, just an interest.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we started going steady that summer, and that was it.
Then, how did he propose to you?
Well, we drove out on, I think it was Howard Avenue, out off of Baker. No houses out there at the time. And I guess we parked there, and he gave me my ring,
Yep. Excuse me.
which I was surprised.
Yep. Get rid of this here. Sorry. You gave the ring.
Uh-huh.
Did he say anything special?
I don't remember, Greg. I must have said yes. Oh.
Then you went back. Well, I'm always curious about that because here you in the car. He proposes to you. You said yes, and then so you got to tell somebody.
Oh, we went out and we told my dad wasn't home, so of course my mother got the news. I know it wasn't like you have to go to the father and ask permission. We didn't do any of that. I know some families do that, but yeah. It was just kind of an accepted thing. But I do remember when we went to his mom and dad's house first, and that wasn't unusual. We did that.
Right.
And then he went upstairs and he came back down and everybody was grinning from ear to ear. And I thought, what's going on here? So they knew what he was going to do. But.
That's exciting. Had you dated a while? Was it?
Yes, we had. We met at Midway. He had just come back he was with his friends. They were all had returned from the service. One was Bill no, Bill wasn't with us. It was Mert Johnson and I can't remember who else. But anyway, they came up to Midway. And Marshall, I don't think I was skating at the time because I really wasn't a very good roller skater. I liked ice skating. And he said, I get the girl in the white shorts. And that was me. So that started it. Yep.
And then subsequently get married. What year did you get married?
1948.
1948?
Mm-hmm.
And what was Marsh doing at the time?
Marsh came home and he, of course, had applied at different colleges, but at that time it was very difficult to get into college because of everybody returning from the war. So he started working as an electrician I think he started with Linquist Electric. His dad was an electrician. He had his own little business and lost it during the Depression. Mm-hmm. And his brother Paul also had come home and started as an apprentice. So he was an apprentice electrician, and then the day when he passed in fact, I have to brag a little bit too, because he did get the highest score of anyone at that time. I know others have scored higher, but yeah, he took the test right in his mom and dad's house, sit at the desk, and there were two union men sitting on the couch and made sure he didn't cheat. It was crazy. And they weren't happy because he got extra credit years for being in the service. There were some of the old men weren't too happy about that. But he did well. Then he was called back into the Navy during the Korean War. And then, of course, I was pregnant with Bob at the time, so he got a deferment until after Thanksgiving. And then he left. We had no idea where he was going, either Pearl Harbor or stay here. Well, he went to Pensacola, Florida, and they set up they opened an airfield called Ellison Airfield, mm-hmm. and it was the first helicopter unit in the whole. They just started with the helicopter training, and that was where they were stationed. So rather than be an aviation electrician's mate, which is what his rank was when he was discharged, he worked in the office, which was good duty, because then he would give the other young fellows cigarettes or something, so they'd do duty for him, so he was always home. But we lived out in the country when we first went down. I know when he called and said he had the apartment, and my mother and I had to cook with kerosene, and she said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Well, I would have done anything. But I was so lonesome too, Greg. Sure. Marshall said, "We have enough money, you can fly home with the baby, but you can't come back." So that kind of made me settle down a little bit, I guess.
During World War II, when he was there, did he stay stateside, or was he?
Yeah, he stayed stateside. Yeah, he was ready to go, and somehow he failed. He was colorblind, and I don't know if he really realized that or not. But they did not send him overseas.
Was he about your same age, Marshall?
A year older.
A year older, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he would have graduated.
In 45.
Yeah.
No, he graduated in 44.
44, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think your mom and dad were 45. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's in the launches in the electric world.
Uh-huh.
And are you still working when you have Bob?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But of course, then he had to go to. He was stationed in Pensacola. But I loved it. I liked once I got over being homesick, it was nice. We had nice neighbors. We moved into called Warrington, which was outside of Pensacola, and we had met we met a wonderful couple from Brooklyn, New York. And so but you know, he had just passed all of his tests, Greg, and he was ready to work full time and get the full pay, and he had to leave. We didn't have much in the Navy. Believe me, we didn't even have a fan in the summer. It was so hot. Oh, it was hot. But anyway, we survived.
And you were destined to come back then, Jamestown, then after that?
Oh yeah, we came back.
And where did you live then?
We first lived, when we got married, up on 4th Street. We were right behind what is now the Elk Club. That's where Franco Anderson had his home.
Right.
And we lived in the chauffeur's quarters. They had made it into an apartment. Oh, it was really cute, Greg. And I could walk to work. Marshall, of course, he worked for Linquist Electric at the time. Now, actually, when we first came back, he and another electrician went to Buffalo to work. So they worked in Buffalo I don't know what plant it was, that summer. And then he got a job at Linquist.
And then subsequently, let me just a little news note, and it just dawned on me. Marshall was a Mason.
Yes, he was.
And he went through the class in 1976 or 77 with me.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
And Jerry Erickson.
Yeah. Small world.
Okay.
Small.
But he was never too active in the Blue Lodge. He was more Scottish Rite, and then, of course, Shrine.
Yeah. I stayed in the Blue Lodge. I didn't really get much beyond that, but yeah, small world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Golly. I digress. And so Marshall's career, he kept in the electric business.
Oh, yes.
And
He and Bill Taylor, finally, they bought B&E Electric. And then Bill retired, and of course, then things kind of went downhill, and wasn't so good at the end, but.
Now, Bill Taylor, though, was in the furniture business.
Yes,
and then did the Taylor furniture close? Is that what happened?
I have no idea. I don't remember all. I should remember. Heck, I was an adult at the time, but I don't. I don't really remember. He was a nice man. He was in charge of the office, and Marsh did the contracting. And
Right. Gee, well, they had such a good reputation for many, many years.
oh yes,
And then, of course, they butted heads with your brother. Competitively.
we don't discuss that.
Okay.
It was bad at one time.
Was
but-
it really?
Oh yeah, but it was all right at the end. And that was hard for our families too, you know. Marsh could be a very stubborn man. I hate to put that on the record.
Well, first being Swedish, second of all, being in the competitiveness of nature when they're bidding contracts, and you know, it's always
Oh, yes.
Schaefer,
Oh,
B&E
yes.
Electric. I remember those days, 'cause I was just a young attorney at the time. Small world. And once the business part of it ended, sort of, what kept Marshall busy?
Well, actually, at the Hotel Jamestown, I think Larry Ross was actually working there, and his daughter was too. I can't think of her name right now, but anyway, Marsh worked as an electrician there.
In-house, right?
Yeah, in-house, and he liked it because he didn't have to order any supplies. Everything was right there for him. And so he did that for, oh golly, maybe a couple of years. And then he reached the point where he realized he was not remembering things. He'd have to go back and check to make sure that he had finished the job. And so he knew himself that he shouldn't be doing that type of work. So then he, of course, retired.
Yeah.
So.
What did you guys do in retirement? Was there hobbies that you guys had?
Well, I love to garden, you know, and mow the lawn, and that's kind of what, and plant flower. Oh, I just like that. I shoveled driveway until we got a snow blower, and yeah, I was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
No, actually, Greg, I have to regress a little bit here. I did start working part-time for Dr. Martinson.
Sure. Bruce.
Just part-time when Bob started college.
Yeah.
And then Bruce asked me to work full-time, so I worked for him full-time until, well, we won't go into that on recording here, but anyway. And then I worked part-time in the summer for Dr. Carlson in the hotel a couple of years. His girl wanted to go to Alaska to do some...
Lee Carlson?
I think it was Lee Carlson, yeah.
He was relation to me.
Oh, okay.
And he died fairly early.
Do you remember Donna Swanson?
I know very much.
Okay. Well, she went to Alaska a couple of summers. So I filled in the summer. And then I started working for, well, then I went to work for Dr. Knipple. And he was in the hotel, and then he moved up to Fairmount Avenue, and Dr. Franchisi bought his practice. But he was wonderful to work for. Really, just a nice man. So I was in charge at the office, and yeah, it was good. I liked it. I've always liked what I'd done. Being a mother, a homemaker. I mean, that was life.
Well, I can see that even to the day. You got this esprit, you got the smile, you got that joy of life. I like
well, things weren't always easy. You know that, Greg. There's always problems, but I had good kids. I had a son who lives in Fort Worth, Texas now. His name is Robert. That was the family name. And then I had my second child, that was Nancy. They were 3 years apart, and we thought kind of that's it. But then the little extra one came along, Susan, and she was a dental hygienist. She worked for well, actually when she first started, she worked for Dr. Martinson for just a few months until he sold his business at that time. And then she started working for Dr. Johnson up in Lakewood. Yeah, what was his first name? Oh, I should remember that. He was such a nice man. And I'm sure you know who he is, Greg. And then he sold his business to Southern Tier, so she worked for them for a while. Yeah, she worked over 30 years as a hygienist.
My God.
And then she got married, and I did not want to live with her, and so I decided we'll sell the house, because they had Susan and her daughter Kaylee had moved in with me at one time. And so I sold, and Greg, I sold at the right time. It worked out just perfect for me. We had put the house in the name of the children, so of course that was, I told them, that's your inheritance.
Yeah.
And a young couple bought it, and they didn't have any children at the time, but they did have a little girl, baby girl, so I thought, oh, how nice. And we'll feet walking around that house again. So, yeah, that was on Swanson Road.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And then I moved here.
And you moved here. So when did Marshall pass away?
Where?
When?
Oh, golly, you would ask me that. I don't remember exactly. He was down in Gary for just a short while, and it's about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
you figure it out for me.
The time frame, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't happy down there, Greg. So it was really a blessing that he could pass away.
Do you have grandkids?
Yes, I do. Bob had 2 boys. One lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan now, and he has 2 children, a boy and a girl, a Scott, and then he had Todd, that was the older boy. He had 2 boys. They live in Indianapolis. Boys are very active in lacrosse, and they're real, that's the game right now, I guess. And Nancy had 2. She had a boy and a girl. Bethany finally ended up in Alaska, in Anchorage, and then right now she's in Santa Rosa, California. That's where she's going to live. Eric, he did everything. I could write a book about Eric, and he's just a remarkable man. He worked on the Antarctic for at least 7 or 8 years, and started out, I think, more like a janitor, and then he worked himself up. And if the weather was bad, he would have to weather over in Christchurch, New Zealand, and that's how he met Miranda, the girl he married, and they have 2 boys. So Eric just finished running a 50 km race. How many miles? Yeah, how many miles would that be?
I don't know. A lot of them.
It's not 50, of course, but I have to find that out, I guess.
Yeah.
It was I have a little skylight in my room, so the kids have the code and they put pictures on it.
Oh, wow.
And this morning I clicked in and there's Eric. He had finished that race and he looked so tired. But he is about 50 years old.
Yeah, wow.
But actually there's a long story with Eric too. His heart, he had a blood clot travel to the heart and he died at least, well, about 3 times his heart stopped. The 3rd time they revived him and he pulled through. He's a miracle. He's just a miracle.
Wow, fantastic.
And he is, to me, well, he's the first grandson too, so they're all good kids, but so I think that was on his bucket list to do that race. He had to probably, I haven't talked to him. He came home last, kind of in the late winter to visit. He has barns, he's a Barnes. So he visited his Uncle Jim and stayed with them. Was with me every single day. He came, he had run his path along the Riverwalk. He couldn't believe how they had cleaned up that Riverwalk area. Okay. And then he would bring me a cup of coffee from Starbucks and he'd have his double espresso with a little water. And then we'd go out and have some, you know, sightsee and had lunch, and yeah, I had such a good time. Probably won't see him again, but you know, it was wonderful. But they're all good kids, Greg. It's just I've nice family.
Well, it starts with good genes, and that's you. You know?
I don't know about that, but I came from, we were raised to work. We tried to earn everything we weren't given everything. We had to earn it. So.
Well, this is great. What's the question I should be asking you that I haven't asked? That little moment of time in your life that you'd say, Greg, I need to tell you about this.
I can't really tell you. The only thing I admire in my mother, she's my angel. Yeah.
Yeah. Her name again was?
Wallstrom.
No, her first name.
Her first name was, you're admiring my mother, Hilda.
Hilda, yeah.
Hilda, only one name. She had no middle name, just Hilda.
Hilda.
Yeah, she was just such a quiet, and when I think of what she went through when she left the city and with the, you know, all the utilities that you needed in those days and moved out to that house on Camp Street. But it worked out to be very well. Turned out to be a well-kept home. Yeah, just, it wasn't easy for either my mom and dad. I admire the way they had the work ethic. Yeah. But.
Well, I admire you, and I thank you for spending the time to talk about this, and I think the kids will get a big kick out of this.
I don't know. I'm anxious to see what I look like, thinking about myself.
I know, you look great.
Oh, dear. Well, thanks, Greg. I could have talked much longer, but...
Well, you did really well.
Yeah.
Thank you.